Welcome everyone to the Harbor Wild Watch Day of Giving and Gratitude event. We're so excited that you're joining us either live today on Giving Tuesday at 2 o'clock or watching it later. We love our later watchers as well. My name is Lindsay Stover. I'm the Executive Director for Harbor Wild Watch. And I have with me here on the screen our two amazing educators and biologists, Rachel Easton, who is our education director, and Stina Troyer, who is our science specialist. And as usual, I am inside an office, warm with my tea. I'm not rubbing it in. And Rachel and Stina are out in the field doing what they do best. So you can see they've got their umbrellas, their hats, their Harbor Wild Watch coats, and do a quick pan so we can see, guys, just where you are. Just, you don't have to tell us yet, but just.
Oh, actually, in the comments, you should guess where's Rachel and where's Stina.
Yes, that's a good idea. I love that.
So you're gonna have to do that in like the next few seconds because we're gonna tell you where they are. So guess now, because very soon you will have the answer. But we are really here today for a international day called Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday was created in 2012, really as a simple idea, a day that encourages people to do good. And in this case, it is doing good in the form of providing monetary donations. But we know here at Harbor Wild Watch that there's so many other ways that people do good and support the nonprofits and the work that the nonprofits do in their community. So today we are here to celebrate all of you who have stuck with us for what has been somehow a very long and at the same time very short last 20 months or so, and sticking with us as we did so many virtual and digital programs over these past 2 years. And then just this past 4 months or so, getting back in the field and doing in-person program once again. So we're so grateful for all of you, our supporters who have watched our digital content, shared our digital content, commented on it. For those of you who have come to the few in-person programs that we've actually had this year, people who have visited us at the Scansey Interpretive and Visitor Center when we reopened back in July. People, of course, who have stuck with us as volunteers, our amazing community science volunteers, who I know Stina's going to give a shout out to later. All the teachers that Rachel has continued to work with throughout these past 2 years on trying to figure out how to do the digital programs, to our members of our Steward Club who are so incredible. Our board members, of course, I cannot forget them, who support us both financially and just making sure that the staff is taken care of. And then, of course, last but absolutely not least, our donors, all of you who have given anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 to Harbor Wild Watch this past year to help support our program so that we can continue, even in these challenging times, to deliver quality, interactive, and fun environmental education to everybody. So thank you for being here with us. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of what we have in store for you today. So as I mentioned, Stina and Rachel are in the field, and they're each going to give us a little preview at where they are and what they're doing. So I won't give that away quite yet. But I do want to give an opportunity for each of us to share what we are most grateful for over this past year of environmental education. So Rachel, why don't we start with you? Tell us what you are most grateful for.
Perfect. Well, I have to say in this past 20 months or so, I have gotten really good at doing digital programs from my phone out in the field and, learning how to walk and talk and read all at the same time and think of something engaging and compelling to talk about these amazing animals and habitats that we have. But I think I am most thankful for the people who tune in, the people who are followers on our Facebook page or our TikTok account that are there continuously offering up encouragement or asking great questions and just helping me not feel so alone out there when I am usually pretty alone.
And, you might talk about this a little bit later, but you have amassed quite a robust TikTok following because you are so skilled at doing those live events and fun TikTok videos. So I'm sure you're grateful for those followers too.
Definitely.
Stina, how about you?
I think I'm gonna be sappy and pick people as well. I'm super grateful for all the community scientists who, at this point, is just a select few. I'm really, really excited for the days where we get to invite the public out to those events because I think they're so fun and engaging, and I just love adding a twist of science to a beach walk. I think that's so cool. But for the team that's making that happen, this strange continuation of a year, I'm super thankful that for them, as well as the lovely Harbor Wild Watch ladies. I think the staff crew, I'm just like getting to work with you, Zoom with you once a week for our staff meetings. And yeah, I think I just love the people I work with. It doesn't feel like work because we love what we do. So I'm very thankful for that.
Oh, I love it. I knew you were going to give a shout out to your community scientist volunteers because that's really like, especially early on in the pandemic, that was the only like interactions you were having, right? So I know that crew is near and dear to your heart, especially, and you'll tell us a little bit later, when you have programs that take place on, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, if you're spending these holidays with these people, it has to be close to you. Well, and I will say Stina stole a little bit of my thunder there for what I'm grateful for, but it's okay. We can be for the same thing. And that really is the two of you and getting to spend more time with you. As many of you know, I had a baby in 2020. And so I really wasn't out in the field very much, keeping the baby at home, safe. But I was able to venture out more this year and go to some programs and spend time with them at the office and even outside of the office on a fun, couple fun staff excursions. So it was so nice to kind of feel a little bit normal again, just being able to spend time with both of you when you're not in a box. So, so we encourage you to share what you're grateful for this year. And it doesn't have to be related to Harbor Wild Watch, it could be anything, but especially if you are grateful for a certain program, or even if you miss a certain program and you're really looking forward to those coming back next year, please let us know in the comments of what you're most grateful for. We appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Rachel now, who is going to give you a tour of the location that she's at. So I haven't said it yet. So if you haven't put your guess in the comments, do so now, because as soon as I hand it over to her, I think she's going to tell us. So I'm going to pin Rachel here in just 1 second, or spotlight her. All right, Rachel, take it away.
All right. And we, of course, got to get rid of my face and bring you some of the natural beauty that is here. It is one of the lesser known places out here on our Key Peninsula. This is a park owned by the Key Pen Parks Department. And it is just this wonderful little tucked away space right adjacent to Minter Creek. And there's this lovely walking trail that takes you down the hill and down the hill. And it's really fantastic place to view all the bits of nature that you can. And I swear the longer I spend here, the more I see. And even just in the beginnings of our broadcast, something caught my eye here. So come investigate this with me. We have this really fantastic, I don't want to say plant. It's not quite a plant. Organism, I guess, is the better term. This is called lungwort, and it is a type of lichen. And lichen is actually a marriage between algae and fungus. And so it's really, really cool. And this one is called lungwort because of its kind of lung-esque texture to it. Lichen is an incredible indicator of air quality. So whenever we see this type of organism, we get very excited because it means that our air quality is pretty good. Other places that you can see lichen would be on like trees. There's a number of different species of lichen around. And what I love about this section of the walkway here is all the mosses. Moss is a true plant, so we can call it that. It's a plant that lacks transport. So it's not going to be moving across its tissues, sugars or water. And so it must grow very short in order to get water to all of its little places. But here's a bunch of different species of moss living on a hemlock tree. We also have some moss just growing straight up the stems of these. I think this maybe is some salmonberry, but this one is very fitting for the time of year that it is. I call this Grinch finger moss because it reminds me very much of the Grinch and his fuzzy little fingertips there. It has a real scientific name. That's not its actual term. But of course it escapes me whenever someone asks me what kind of moss that is. We also have these great epiphytic mosses that grow on top of these maple trees. They're big leaf maples and alders here that both will grow moss on top of them. And then as we walk down along the trail, we can see there's been a downed tree here, an older hemlock that's given way probably in the wet soils of our recent rains. And this you would think would be kind of not such a good thing for a forest, but it turns out a log like this can become host to many hundreds of different species that will help break it down. The funguses will invade and start to multiply and further reduce this woody habitat. And when something like this falls near a stream, we get good salmon habitat. So let's keep walking down and actually see if we can get to the stream. Oh, here's a cute little creature. Not quite what we usually see on our walks, but appreciate those adorable four-legged friends. So I'm walking on mostly alder leaves right here, and you can just really hear how squishy and squelchy it is. The ground is very soft and holding on to lots and lots of water. And if it weren't for a lot of these leaves, we would experience even more flooding than we have seen. This leaf litter can soak up and hold on to a tremendous amount of rainwater. And then of course we see the flowing water as it travels down. This is a little kind of a little stream here. And if we go all the way to the bottom of this hill, we're going to run into Minter Creek. So that'll kind of give you a good idea of where I am in the world. And I walked down here earlier today just to get an eye on what the tide was doing. And it is quite high right now. On a very strong king tide, it'll actually come up over the banks here, and this area will be underwater. But I was already seeing quite a bit of wildlife activity here. So of course we have the chum salmon, which are making their way up, which you can see there's some anglers, and the hatchery over there. You can hear the gulls as they're calling to one another and communicating the presence of some of these fish. And then we saw a huge amount of seal activity. So I saw 2 or maybe 3 harbor seals. It's very difficult to zoom in, and I apologize for that. Zoom really was not meant for in the field excursions. But when you see a big wake or large waves coming, or big splashing, that is the activity of the harbor seal. So all of these predators here, because of the salmon that are here as well. And this place where the freshwater and saltwater mixes together, this estuary habitat that we have is just so important. And so it's great to be able to have this little park to preserve the access so more people can view and get to see these amazing fish as a part of their migration. Earlier too, I also saw some bald eagles in the area. Of course, they're missing now. There's a nice gull. But the eagles know when the salmon come in that there's easy meals to be had. The fish will head upstream and spawn, or head to the hatchery and get kind of manually spawned out, and those carcasses of the fish will wash back into the creek. Oh, there is a bald eagle. That far, far treetops. There's a bald eagle back there. This closer bird is a gull. And then still lots of activity here. See if I can move down and maybe get you a more clear view of the seals because it's just fantastic to watch them. They really are patrolling this area quite well, protecting their food source. And there's 1, 2, I can see 3 seals from here. A little farther out in the estuary, they just look like little bumps or sometimes big splashes. There's another 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, here comes a big wake of 1. So pay attention. We might see some seal splashing about. Makes it pretty difficult for the fishermen who are here when there are so many seals in the bay patrolling and picking off the straggler salmon. A lot of the fish here have already come up the stream and spawned in recent weeks. So these are kind of the last few. So these seals are taking advantage of the source of protein and calories and fat before the lean months of winter set in. All in all, just a fantastic opportunity to view wildlife. And I am so excited at the thought of bringing students out to this location or other beaches and estuaries around us so that we can share what we know with the next generation of kids who are going to be growing up in this place and calling Puget Sound their home. Here comes a seal. Let's see if it comes a little closer to us. Oh, there it goes. So from where I am, with my eagle eyes that of course you can't see on the screen, I can see 8 harbor seals with their heads up, and undoubtedly there are a few more that are beneath the surface. So quite a lot of these big predators here feasting on our fishy friends. So fantastic. Oh, look right here. All right, where's my glare? Here's a fish. We got a salmon right here up against the banks. Oh, and back into the glare. Come back. I was going to talk about you, fishy. Gotta have your eyes open when you're out in nature. You never know when a big fish is going to just pop up right at your feet. How cool is that? Let's go wander this way and see if maybe there are more fish hiding up against the bank. There's one place where the harbor seals can't reach is right all the way into the shallow water. They get a little nervous coming this close to land, and I doubt they would come close with me here, but you never know. Oh, there's another one. Kind of tucked back amongst these arched branches of trees that have fallen over in past years' storms. We've got a pretty good high tide here, so there's a lot of land that's underwater that the fish don't normally have access to. How cool. I hear more splashing. Must be more seal activity out here. Yeah, the seals are they're all over at the opposite bank. So maybe they can cordon off the fish a little bit better over there. That's hard to show, but trust me, it's very, very cool. All right, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for more salmon here along the bank, but I think we'll turn it right back over to you guys. And maybe Stina can tell us where she's coming.
Awesome. Rachel, a couple of things. Number one,
yeah.
I had never heard of the Grinch finger before. I'm going to go have to look that up. And
You
number
won't
two,
find it anywhere except for in my videos, because that's what I call it. Yeah, it's just one of my favorites.
well, and the other thing is that I heard loud and clear from you that I should not pick up my leaf litter. That's what I heard.
Leave
Unless it's around
will...
a storm drain.
Yes, yeah, clear it from storm drains. But yeah, if you can leave it, I mean, it's how nature intended to feed and protect and prevent erosion. It's food and shelter for bugs and other microorganisms. It's food for funguses and things like that. So if you can leave the litter in your yard, you'll have a much happier habitat because of that.
I love it. I love it. Last thing, do you have maybe like 3 tips that you would give people if they want to view salmon? What are the best tips that you would give them?
Okay, so don't do what I'm doing, which is brightly colored. I'm in my blue and neon green. You want to dress naturally and move quietly and slowly and pick a place near the banks where you anticipate salmon would be, and just sort of sit there quietly and wait. The fish will come, but they will, they're programmed to avoid predators, and anything new and scary could be a predator. So you want to kind of dress for the environment. Pull out your camouflage if you've got it, and then just plunk yourself down by a stream. I recommend, if you really want a guaranteed view of salmon, finding a place where there is a hatchery or a way that the salmon population is bolstered. So either a restored stream, one that's been kind of renovated and made better for salmon. So I'm thinking of Chico Creek in Bremerton or Donkey Creek in Gig Harbor. Both of those have undergone some pretty massive restorations in recent years, and they're seeing an increase in the number of salmon. Or finding a place like Minter Creek, which flows right next to the Minter Creek Fish Hatchery. And that's another great place that you can view salmon. And then you find the best views on the high tide, which is a little bit of the reason why we chose this time of day to go live for our programming. When the tide is high, and you'll want to consult your tide charts, it's going to push salt water up into the estuary and up into the creek, and it makes it a lot easier for those fish to make their way up. So quite often they kind of wait and sit until the tide comes up, and then they can swim a lot farther with a lot less energy, which, if you're a salmon trying to make it to your final spawning grounds, you need all the energy that you can to make it there. So conserving that is a thing that our fish definitely do. And then don't be surprised or disappointed if you don't see any salmon. Take a look and see if you can find evidence of salmon. So this time of year, we're going to start to see the salmon carcasses piling up. You'll see the predators like these harbor seals or the eagles or the seagulls doing their thing, which can be just as exciting as seeing the fish as well. So I recommend, kind of take in the whole of the experience and I thought I saw a fish. Nope, sorry, distracted. I always got one eye on the water, right? But do what you can to really appreciate and take in just all of the beauty, and it's all connected out there. So you can appreciate, how the leaves help the salmon, how the trees help the salmon, and then how the salmon help the trees and, fertilize the surrounding habitat as well.
Wonderful. All right. Those are hot tips right there directly from Rachel. She would know. And I would imagine that the high tide is a great time for the salmon to come up, but it probably makes it a little bit easier for those harbor seals to eat them as well.
It definitely does. Yes. And on low tide, the harbor seals cannot come up this far into the fresh water. So you kind of take your chances, I guess.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the entire life of the salmon?
Yeah,
so.
right.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So before we hop on over to Stina, I just wanted to do a couple quick little updates. So we talked about today how we're all about, gratitude for everything that you have supported us in doing this year. But maybe you would love to hear some numbers, what we've actually done this year, because you kind of get in bits and pieces. But I have some program numbers that I think will interest you. So in 2021, our amazing team, Rachel and Stina, along with some great contractors that we utilize for our community science program, that dream team that Stina was referencing, and some amazing volunteers, albeit a small number of them, we delivered 275 environmental education programs so far this year. And now that's not counting the about 10 or so that we have left in the month of December, from our beach monitoring to some salmon tours, and then some other live fun programs that we'll do, like from the Scanty House. So 275 programs that these two individuals, who you can't see on the screen right now, but let's all give them a big round of applause, because they are incredible educators and have done, there you are, so much work to deliver those programs. So incredible job. And with that, we have had, I feel like we need a drum roll for this. over 411,000 views or participants, because it's a combination of in-person and digital programs. So a lot of those are digital viewers. But it's a crazy number, 411,000. I mean, it's just amazing to see those numbers. And kind of the one of the silver linings during this pandemic has been that we've been able to reach people beyond our normal audience. So we've had kids that are tuning in from somewhere landlocked in the middle of the country, or across the world, a completely different habitat, are able to come and visit and learn about the Salish Sea and the plants and animals that we have here. So it's been really a pleasure to see all of that, those extra benefits that we weren't thinking of when we decided to go digital. So thank you to Rachel and Stina for getting that done, and for all of you for supporting the many programs that we have delivered, really on either working from home or just alone out in the field for the majority of this year. So now I want to send it on over to Stina, who is going to tell us where she is and what she's doing. So take it away, Stina.
You would think by now we'd be really good at Zoom and remembering to unmute ourselves, but whoo, caught that quick. Hello, everybody, and happy Giving Tuesday. We're excited to give you some thanks from the field. And if you haven't guessed it by now, I'm here at Donkey Creek Park. I'm currently on the viewing platform right across from this lovely area that you can come and have picnics, sit on the nice benches, look at the beautiful tall trees. Wow, those are some stately Douglas firs. And of course, during this time, it's a great opportunity to pop on by and take a look at the chum salmon that are returning. Now, I'm gonna agree with Rachel in griping about Zoom's lack of ability to Zoom, because there are two fish right here. And I don't know if you caught some little glimmers of splashes, but they are like, I don't know, it's almost like we pay them to perform, but they are doing the nice little courting dance. So one fish just kind of shimmying up to the other. And this is kind of that end of the life cycle stage where they're gonna lay some eggs in this creek. I'm noticing that the water is starting to recede. So when the tide is high here at Donkey Creek, we actually get an influx of water, which makes it a lot easier for these fish to return. And so I'm hoping, like, okay, you two, scooch on up further on the creek so you're not having saltwater influence your little redd that you're trying to make. A redd, of course, being a salmon nest. Again, I don't know if you can see, they're just doing a little salmon dance right here. Looking cute. There we go. There's some flashing. That is the male. The female has a darker stripe. Oh, perfect. They're rocking and rolling. But chum salmon is one of our 5 species of salmon. I think a pretty fun thing to know is there's 7 salmonids here in the Pacific Northwest, and there's a really fun way to remember all of them. Salmonids, of course, are those fish that start their life in freshwater, move out to saltwater, which is a strange thing to do for a fish type creature, and then actually return back to freshwater again. So freshwater, saltwater, freshwater, what a life cycle. There's only 7 species in the Pacific Northwest that can do that. So let me teach you all 7. Okay, what you're gonna need to do is get out your hand, warm it up, like get a wiggly. So thumb is for chum. The 2 species, the 2 salmon up here. So thumb for chum. Thanks, Lindsay, for playing along. Next finger, you can point to your sock or your eye for sockeye salmon. If you get eye sock, that's not a fish. So sock eye is important. The next finger on your hand, it's the tallest finger. It's the king for king salmon. And then you have your ring finger, which you might wear some silver on. Yeah, there you go, Lindsay. Work that silver ring for silver salmon. And then, of course, your pinky for pink salmon. And then there's steelhead and cutthroat trout. Those are all 7 species that go freshwater, saltwater, freshwater in their life cycle. So one more time, thumb is for chum, pointer finger, sockeye, tallest finger, king, ring finger, silver, pinky, pink, steelhead, cutthroat. You got it. Now, if you're sitting there wondering, okay, wait, you said all those fish. I didn't hear coho. I didn't hear chinook. I didn't hear keta. I didn't hear dog salmon. Like, what is this lady talking about? Have no fear. This is just a simple little memory device. For each one of these fish, there's at least 3 other names that they go by. So thinking of the king salmon, they're also called chinook. Silver salmon are also called coho. Our lovely chum salmon here go by dog salmon, as well as keta. If you see them in the grocery store, you'll most likely see it marketed as keta salmon, because there's something about dog salmon that just doesn't sound delicious. So good job, marketing team out there. I'm gonna flip back around because I heard a lovely splash from our 2 here. But being that we're far away on the lovely viewing platform, I'm gonna recommend that if you have a chance, come on by, because this is a great place to check out some Harbor Wild Watch signage, to learn about the salmon life cycle. Incredible. Rachel kind of alluded to the fact that once these salmon spawn, they die. But have no fear, because those carcasses indeed help fertilize these incredible trees. And Rachel also mentioned that where Minter Creek is a pretty established site, here at Donkey Creek, there's been some incredible restoration efforts. So I'm going to take you along the trail that was once part of a paved over road. So imagine this lovely creek that we're walking next to. About once we move away from the tall trees, that's when you know we're in new restoration zone. But this area was a culvert at one point. So about a 300-foot pipe was how Donkey Creek flowed out to the estuary, which you can imagine if you're a fish trying to return to your home stream to spawn, that's really tricky. And so now the city of Gig Harbor daylighted this creek and removed that culvert, added this lovely walking path, and you can kind of do some comparisons between Minter Creek, where it's all natural, and even just looking, back towards the area of the park that has been less disturbed. But just start looking at all these new plants that are starting to grow and reestablish. And I actually like looking at the some more Harbor Wild Watch signage that shows that really early in 2013, when this project started, you can see our little lighthouse, Harbor History Museum, to our in November 2021, you can see all the new habitat growth. Of course, it does include some things like our invasive Himalayan blackberry. I see a nice big poof of Scotch broom. Almost blanked on that for a second. And then another thing I'm noticing that's new for me this year is all this awesome poetry that's been put in along the creek. So there's a lot of great signage. It's really just beautiful and inspiring. And this spot under the bridge kind of gives you a closer look at some of the salmon. So I see a carcass right in the glare. All right, there we go. That fish looks like it's doing some break dancing. It's got a little headstand going on, but it indeed is just kind of starting to wash out. So hopefully that fish spawned before it died, and now it's going to help fertilize the lovely riparian zone, which is that area on either side of the creek that transitions our water habitat to the land. So thank you, salmon, for doing what you do. And thank you all for visiting Donkey Creek. I'm gonna pop over here because if you do come visit Donkey Creek, we would love for you to participate in another community science adventure that we have. This is a more passive station where you can walk by, take a peek in the creek, and then write your observations in our lovely little logbook here. If you would like to go over the directions, essentially you're timing yourself, counting the number of fish that cross under the bridge, and then recording that in the log, which we can then correlate with high tide or low tide, time of day, which turns out we see most fish during the daytime because it turns out that's when people are at the park. But that salmon observation station is kind of a fun little community science thing. You're welcome to participate if you're taking a peek in Donkey Creek. So with that, now you know your salmonid species. You can kind of think about restoration and how it's changing places to be more natural and really facilitate the return of these salmon. Of course, salmon are a very important species in that food web. Lots of creatures depend on them, including our resident orcas. While they prefer Chinook salmon or king salmon, chum salmon is probably their number 2 yum yum fish. So yay, chum salmon. We really hope that those fish returns every year are rocking and rolling so we can feed our iconic Pacific Northwest species, as well as fisher folks. People love fishing for salmon too. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Sina. Oh, I love Donkey Creek. It's just one of my favorite spots. It really is. So you went over it kind of quickly, but I'm wondering who drew the artwork on that interpretive signage?
Oh, yours truly.
Yes,
yeah.
I will say that
That's
both
right.
Rachel and
Although there is a cute one from our intern at the time, Katie Dewhurst. So we're gonna walk our way to that one. I colored it, but she drew it, and it's super cute. So it's a team effort all the time. So go team.
It is. And Rachel and Stina are both very talented artists, from doing interpretive signage that gets put in our city parks. We have actually 17, I believe, interpretive signs, 3 of which are in Donkey Creek Park here, but they're all around the Gig Harbor and the Key Peninsula. On our website, you can see a map of where they are and you can find them all. Fun little scavenger hunt for the day, maybe for a weekend, because it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, Rachel and Sina are both very talented. Rachel did our pin this year, which of course is adorable crab holding a little vaccination needle. And we love it. So kudos to both of you two for being talented in the field, but also incredible artists as well. So thank you, Stina. I have another little shout out that I want to do before we check back in with Rachel. So as I mentioned, we are so lucky to have a number of donors support us each year, from individual donors to corporate sponsors to grantors and people who do contract us to do work. So I wanted to highlight a couple of those now for you. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. I just wanted to, as I said, just point a couple out for us. So first, I want to start with the Russell Family Foundation. This is our kind of foundation that's right in our backyard. Their main headquarters are located in Gig Harbor, and they fund quite a bit of work in the Puget Sound region, specifically for student programs for 5th grade through 12th grade. And so we are very lucky to have had the support of the Russell Family Foundation since we began back in 2004. So we're really lucky for their support. We're kind of their backyard organization, and they have helped us grow significantly over the past 15 plus years. So thank you to the amazing team at the Russell Family Foundation, especially to Fabiola, who is our incredible program director, comes to our programs, watches our programs, and is always in our corner. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Next, I want to move to someone who we do contract work for, and that is Pierce County. And Stina mentioned a little bit earlier about our community science program, and that was one of the programs that throughout this pandemic we have continued to do in person, even though it's a smaller crew that is doing that work. And we were contracted through Pierce County during the pandemic to do oyster related work. And that's specifically looking at Olympia oysters, our native oysters. And I'll let Stina explain that in more detail a little bit later. But we've had some incredible contractors helping us out with this project, and really are lucky to have a continuation even into 2022 and 2023 with this program. So again, really, really excited about that. And then I want to thank one of our corporate sponsors. It's been a rough 2 years for businesses who typically give to nonprofits, but in some cases just couldn't because of the financial hardship the pandemic has placed on them. And so I want to do a special shout out to the American Family Insurance, our local agency here, the Tim Lopez Agency, for being sponsors of our Make Waves event, our premier sponsor, as well as donating throughout the year for other events and causes. So thank you so much to Tim Lopez and his incredible crew for your financial support in 2021. And lastly, but certainly not least, and I believe this individual is on right now watching, so I hope that he is, but I have to do a huge shout out to our board president, Howard Spigals, who not only watches probably almost every single live program that we do, but he is a major financial supporter of ours as well. He was our largest individual donor at our Make Waves event this past year. He is a rock when it comes to the board and supporting them and the staff in everything that we do. So Howard, I know you're watching. Thank you so much for being our rock, supporting us throughout these challenging 20 months. The three of us specifically, are so grateful to you and for everything that you have done and continue to do for us and the Harbor Wow Watch mission. So thank you, Howard. All right, so now I think.
Wait. Can I also add that we have to be thankful for Howard's terribly great jokes?
Yes, that is one of the things.
Addition.
One of the things that we actually miss the most about being in the office all at the same time. So Howard used to stop by nearly every week when he was the treasurer for our organization, and would always come in and bring should we call them dad jokes? I don't know what we should call them. They're amazing jokes. We love them. We think they're funny. But a lot of people tell me, at least, that my marine science humor is not funny, namely my husband. But Howard appreciates it, and he brings us more jokes all the time. So thank you. Good addition, Tina. Okay, so according to my schedule, we are now going and checking back in with Rachel. And Rachel is going to tell us a little bit about upcoming programs. And then if she found anything else cool while she's out there. And hold on, let me pin you, Rachel, if I can figure out how to do that.
All right. Well, I was really thinking a little bit about what can I show you that's not just like a dead fish. And it got me kind of going on this circle of life type of thinking where, you know, it's not just a dead fish, it's nourishment for the next generation. And then I looked over and saw this cedar stump that has now become a nurse log and is home to several different species. So you can see here the underlying cedar that was logged at some point and cut off. I can tell that it's a cedar because it's got this kind of slope to the root, kind of buttressed and being so close to the salt water. It's just a couple feet away. And because the center is hollow and has begun to kind of decay. And then on top of it, there is quite a large, this is a Western hemlock tree, a pretty well-established one. And they absolutely love to use nurse logs for their little seedlings. Also growing straight out of it are some salal. So this has become, there's a blue heron right there. Okay, that is so just amazingly cool. And he's decided, no, there's a big scary blue thing in the bushes. I'm not going to hang out there. But just amazing to see. But then back to our log. There's a variety of different mosses and lichens, and I don't know if you can see, just the tiniest little mushrooms are here. There's some alder trees that are growing out of this. Looks like maybe a cottonwood too. It's hard to say. But all of this is made possible because of the cedar tree's death. So in this one species is no longer here, but all the rest are thriving because of it. And all of them are thriving also because there are dead fish. I went to see what kind of tree it was by taking a good sniff, because cedar often is quite aromatic. And all I smelled was this rotting carcass over here. Very pungent. Not my favorite smell when I was expecting beautiful cedar tree. But but it just brings me back to the whole idea of, things are in a cycle. And though we are in this kind of season of pandemic, what I call the COVID times, it won't last forever, and we'll be back to our usual life. Oh, that heron is back. Oh, I hear another one coming in too. Oh, just kidding. There he goes again. But we'll be back being able to welcome students back out into the field to do these field trips. We have some pretty great wetland field trips where we take students into the forest and we examine and study and look and appreciate all of this habitat. We also are looking forward to getting back out on the beach with kids to be able to showcase, how it's all connected. How does the saltwater, what does that have to do with the trees, and what do harbor seals have to do with mushrooms? And it just really is a wonderful thing that I'm very much looking forward to. So I can just imagine walking this pathway with, 30 of my favorite second graders, and just thinking of all the wonderful questions that they would ask and all the things that they can see that I had never even noticed before. I swear it's because they're just closer to the ground and have better eyesight than me. But I am constantly amazed when it comes to children and the ways that they can be curious about the natural habitat and then learn to become really good stewards of this place and others like it around the greater Gig Harbor area. So that's what I'm looking forward to most, I think. And just thinking of the cycle of it all.
Beautiful, Rachel.
Absolutely.
Did it make you cry,
beautiful.
Stina? It's always my goal. Make Stina tear up.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. And all of our activities that are coming up for the rest of December, as well as in 2022, are going to be on our website. If you haven't been to our website recently, you're going to be surprised because it's a new website. We revamped everything, oh gosh, about 4 months ago now. And I think the calendar and just everything is more accessible and beautiful. And I think you will really enjoy it. So you can check our calendar. We also put all of our events, whether they're live or in person, on our Facebook page. So that's also, if you follow us on social media, that's a great way to find out about digital and in-person events. So Stina, how about you? What's going on at your site? Anything interesting and what's upcoming that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I have made my way from Donkey Creek Park over to Austin Park. And this is kind of the estuary side of things. So thinking about restoration and change, going back to the oysters that Lindsay mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing some Olympia oyster, predation studies this season out at Penrose Point State Park to see if that is still a possibility of something we can do in these places. So that's, I think, a really exciting project that we have in the works with our team of community scientists. And then another thing, just kind of thinking about change and gratitude, is that this park, actually Austin Park, got a little bit of a new name because the estuary was renamed. So thinking about things that we should be grateful for and things to celebrate is knowing that we are indeed on the traditional lands of the people who spoke the Southern Lushootseed language. And something that has been added to this park is this awesome little voice box. And so I'm gonna actually let this share the restored name of this estuary. And so take a listen and go ahead and say the word along with our narrator here. I think I'm definitely grateful for the chance to learn some new words and put this language into use in upcoming programs. So here we go.
Thomas Talbot Waterman recorded Lushootseed place names for the local tribes, and his archival material gave the Tushoetseed name Twalkush within the Gig Harbor area. Twalkush means place where game exists. According to a typed manuscript of Puyallup tribal elder John Holt, Twalkush was one of the 3 village sites located at Gig Harbor. Let's go over the Lushootseed place name within Gig Harbor. Twalkush, Twalkush, Twalkush.
And there you have it, folks. Welcome to Twalkush Estuary. I will keep practicing and getting better at that, and I hope you all do too. But again, just huge gratitude for that change and that recognition of the first peoples who were on this land. So with that, I think I'm gonna kind of walk a little closer to the water because this is also a great place to see seabirds. This is one of our sites that we do Blue Water Task Force monitoring. That's in partnership with the South Sound Surfrider crew and our Harbor Wild Watch volunteers, Kendra, Kellen, Julie, and Frank. They come out here, wade through the mud, grab a water sample, and take a look to see what the fecal coliform levels are doing here. And if you're interested in those results, we have a link that's shared in all sorts of spots, but you can see kind of local water quality results across places where people play. And this is one of those places where you'll often see people paddleboarding, kayaking. The Gig Harbor race team is often out here paddling around, often falling in the water. And so that's a program, again, through our community science efforts, that we get to kind of keep a pulse on how our water quality is doing in the places that people play, because nobody wants to swim in poo. Or at least I definitely don't go scuba diving in these places, and that's just gross. So with that, cheers to all of those volunteers doing that work as well. And cheers to the volunteers who are doing seabird surveys every month. This is not one of our sites, but it's certainly a great place to see the returning winter waterfowl. Off in the distance, there's some buffleheads. I see some mallard ducks, a little underappreciated, but still beautiful. The 2 that flew off were a pair of widgeons, and there's, I think, some either common goldeneye or Barrow's goldeneye on that log. But again, Zoom can't zoom, so come here and see the birds for yourself. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the lovely Lindsay.
I love that. I feel like truer words have never been spoken. Nobody likes to swim in poo. I think we should put that on a plaque in the office.
Or at least bumper stickers, you know?
Yeah, or maybe it's a gift for all of our water quality volunteers.
Oh, I love it.
I love it too. Oh, thank you for sharing that wonderful addition of the name change to the estuary, the addition of that name. I absolutely love it. And the fact that we are all going to be working on pronouncing those names and incorporating it. And Stina, is there another chance that people can learn about salmon, perhaps in a tour format?
Oh, well, thank you for that great question, Lindsay. It turns out on Saturday, December 11th, you can join the lovely Rachel Easton right here. Boom, I'm gonna flip around at that picnic bench here in Austin Park. And Rachel will take you on a guided adventure starting at the estuary, leading you to the creek, to learn all about the incredible life cycle of salmon. You got a few little tidbits here, but there's estuary dances to learn. There's salmon to see, there's salmon to smell. So grab your mask and join Rachel for that at 10 a.m. on the 11th.
Woohoo.
Perfect. I love it. They're so much fun, the salmon tours. And I know Rachel and Sina, as they both kind of alluded to, are excited to get back in the field with people. And we are practicing, COVID safety protocols. So we're still distancing. We're wearing masks, even though they were outside, to make sure that our volunteers and our staff and all of you are safe. So we appreciate it. Let's see here. Any last tidbits, thoughts about the different sites that you're at right now that you want to throw in, or something that I've forgotten?
I'm just going to say there's no bad weather, just bad gear. So get your butt out into the field and go see some fish before they're gone.
Love it.
That is a good point. And just that we are so thankful again for so many parks in our area, both city parks and our Key Pen parks and PenMet parks and all these amazing parks, these public spaces, state parks. We love all these public spaces that grant access to the great outdoors for the people of our community. So very, very thankful for that.
Well said. I love it. Well, this kind of concludes our gratitude event. And we know that you will continually following us and sharing and supporting us through the end of this next month of December, as well as into 2022. And if you haven't had a chance and you have the ability to make an end of year donation, we would certainly appreciate your support. There are a number of ways that you can do that. The easiest way is probably like going on our website. There is a big orange button in the top right corner that says donate. And so anywhere you're on our site, you'll see that. You can click it and it'll take you to the donate page, and you can enter any amount that you would like to donate to us. As I mentioned before, all of the donations go right to delivering environmental education programs here in our community. You can also stop by the Scansy Visitor and Interpretive Center and drop it off when we are open. Right now, Wednesday through Friday is the best time to reach us, between 10 and about 3. Those are the best times that you're going to get somebody, a staff member in the office, that can make sure that your donation gets put in the right spot. We also have a locking mailbox. So if you don't feel like mailing your donation, you can just pop it in our box at the office. Of course, our address is on our website, but it's at the Scansy House in Scansy Village Park at 3207 Harborview Drive. Or you can just plain on mail it in, and we can do that as well. So we appreciate any donation that you're able to give us, because it will directly support the programs that we deliver in the community. So a big thank you to Rachel and Stina for both being out in the field with us and showing us how it's done, and that lovely gear that keeps you warm. And we hope to see the rest of you later this month at a program, whether it be a salmon tour or the tree lighting ceremony that's taking place on Saturday, or if you're going to tune into one of our digital events of beach monitoring with Stina, I think next week, and then the end of the month. So there's still lots of opportunities to learn about Puget Sound and the Salish Sea, and help and be inspired to be a good steward for this environment. So thank you for joining us today. And as always, if you're watching this later and you'd like to give, you can always comment on the video and we'll go back and answer it. Or you can always email us at info@harborwildwatch.org for any questions that you need to get answered right away. So thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your Giving Tuesday. And we'll see you soon.